Hello, Jane.
Yes?
Hi, this is Larry Smith calling from the Library of Congress.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Jane. How are you?
I'm better.
Better?
I have vertigo, all the time.
Yeah, that's
But
when
some days are really good one, and this seems to be a pretty good one. I'm very grateful.
I'm pleased. I'm happy you're doing well.
Oh, wait, let me cut off this TV that I can hear you much better. Okay, I did it.
Thank you, dear.
Okay. Where are you calling from, Niles?
I'm calling from Virginia. I work for the
Yes.
I work for the Library of Congress in Culpeper, Virginia.
Oh, yes. Larry and
Jenny.
Jeannie, is that right?
Jenny.
Jenny?
Yeah, Larry and Jenny. My wife is listening in on the conversation. Yes.
Hi, Jane.
She's
Hello. How sweet of you to call.
Well, we called you with a special purpose, not just to send you our love, but I have a couple of questions for you.
Okay, I hope I can answer them for you.
All you have to do is remember when you were 8 years old
Yes?
and you made a cute little film called Bright Eyes.
Oh, boy, now.
Well, we are going to play the film tomorrow night as part of a series of films about adoption. We're doing a tribute to adopting kids. And,
what a wonderful thing to do.
well, we try to do something good often.
Oh, that's great. I've never heard of anybody doing that and celebrating that. That's a wonderful thing and a wonderful idea.
Well, this is actually, November is Adoption Month, and a girl that I work with just adopted a young boy from Colombia. She went down to South America.
Oh, how exciting. Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, well, when she went through all this, it was quite an ordeal to be able to adopt a young boy.
Yes, I can imagine.
She wanted to help spread the word about that people needed to remember adoption and to try to help kids in need.
And it's National Adoption.
And that's why we decided to do this during National Adoption Month.
I think that's a joyful thing.
Well,
What is the little boy's name?
Juan Christian, I believe.
Juan, Jaun, Christian?
Right.
John Sebastian.
Oh, isn't that lovely? Well, I'll add him to my prayer list.
Well, aren't you sweet? Thank you. Well, are you ready for the questions?
Yes?
Okay. First question is, how were you cast in the film Bright Eyes?
How would I do what? I couldn't hear that.
How were you cast? How did you get the job in the film?
Oh, I went on an interview. There were 134 little girls there. And the assistant director, there were 4 rows, 4 lines of kids.
Wow.
I was in about the 3rd row back. And, of course, all the other little girls, I was the only one there. Straight bangs, and a very tailored little dress, no curls, no dimples, and no curls.
Oh, you didn't try
And
to
very
look
plain shade.
right. You didn't try
And
to.
I asked the assistant director, he said, what kind of experience have you had? I said, well, I started working at 2.5 years old on the stage, and then at 3 I acquired my own radio show from 3 to 6.5 in Atlanta, Georgia. He said, are you being
Precocious?
Looking for?
Precocious?
In other words, are you kidding me? I said, no, sir, not at all. I have 17 scrapbooks to prove it. I said, but I'm sure you don't have time to look at my 17 scrapbooks. And he said, I said, what kind of little girl is this in the picture that I'm playing? He said, well, you're not very nice. You're quite mean and obnoxious, and you're just a kind of little girl that nobody really cares about because you are so mean and obnoxious. And you're absolutely awful to the little girl that comes to live at the house because her mother died and worked there. And I said, oh, my goodness, well, who's directing your movie? He said, David Butler. I said, Mr. Butler gave me my first job here in 1934 and 1932 when we first arrived here in California. I was in Candle with Care, and he chose me to do 3 close-ups and special expressions for him because of the impersonations I did for him, and he liked my face and the way I reacted to things. He said, well, he's not here. It's up to me to pick out the little kid, and you're not the type we're looking for. I said, well, if I could just talk to Mr. Butler. He said, no, we don't have time for that. So he went on to 2 more kids. And then the phone rang, and the man across down at the other end of the hall said, oh, come here. It's Mr. David Butler. He wants to talk to you, his assistant director. And I thought, oh, my goodness, if I could just talk to Mr. Butler. So I did something I've never done before in my life. I said, please, God, I hope this is the right thing. This is not wrong to do this, but I'm going to try to see if I can talk to Mr. Butler when this man talks to him. And I followed the assistant director across the room to where the telephone was, and he could talk to Mr. Butler. So when he got there, Mr. Butler always had a tendency. He was hard of hearing, and he had a tendency to kind of shout. And so he was yelling into the telephone, and the man had the telephone receiver holding it out from his ear. And I could hear everything Mr. Butler said, which was, did you find a little girl that would be right for the role? He said, no, there's nobody here that's the type. And then I was pulling on his leg, the assistant director's leg, and very loudly I said, would you please tell Mr. Butler for me that Jane Withers is here, and I am the little girl that I did all the impersonations for him when he selected me for close-ups and Handle with Care. And I'm yelling too. I'm yelling loud.
Yeah.
And the director was saying, hey, kid, will you let go of my leg and stop bothering me? And Mr. Butler was yelling, hey, did that little girl say she was the little girl that did all the impersonations? And he said, yeah, she's driving me crazy. He said, listen, you bring her to my office as quick as you can. I've been looking all over this town for that little girl. Well, the assistant director, I thought he was going to faint. And he said, yes, Mr. Butler, I'll get her over to your office right away. So I went to the office and I walked in the door and he said, oh, you are the little girl, and you're a very talented little girl. You did all those wonderful impersonations of all the stars when you worked on Handle with Care, and I've been looking all over this town for you. I didn't know your name or how to get in touch with you. And I said, Mr. Butler, this is a prayer answered for me. Thank you so much. I've wanted so much to see you. And he said, well, Janie, he said, I'm so glad I found you. And I said, now what do I have to do? He said, I've already told the other people. He said, it's not entirely up to me just to be able to choose you for the role. The other gentlemen have to see you too. So he said, I am going into a meeting in about 15 minutes, and I'll get to see all those men, and I will tell them that I found you. And he said, we're having a big meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., and he said, if they want me to, I will call you and we'll get your phone number and everything, and maybe you can come to the meeting tomorrow if they want you to. I said, I would be happy to do anything if I could just have an opportunity at this role. So he said he took my number over the telephone. He didn't give it to his assistant. He said, I want your number now, so I don't want to lose you. And so he took my number over the telephone, and I gave him my address and everything. And he said, I promise your mother I will call you both when I get out of this meeting in the next 15 minutes. Well, we were so excited, you can well imagine. We were so thrilled.
Oh, yeah.
So when we got home, I only had 2 dresses that I wore for interviews. The one I had on and one other dress. Don't forget, this was in the years of the
Great Depression. All right.
And I was lucky to have 2 dresses. So she quickly got the other dress out and washed it and was starting to iron it when the phone rang. Well, Mama ran to the phone and said, Yes, Mr. Butler. Oh, that's wonderful, Mr. Butler. We will try to be there at a little bit before 9 o'clock in the morning. And when we finished talking, we gave each other a hug, and my mother and myself, and then we said a prayer of thanks to the Lord. And then we suddenly smelled something burning, and we looked over on the ironing board, and Mother had left the iron on the dress.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes, and my other dress, I still have that dress. I have it framed.
That's
I
great.
have that little dress framed, and oh, dear Gussie, we were so thrilled. So when I walked in the door the next morning, I had on this, well, of course, again, the same dress I had on, and I wore that same dress back the next day, clean, of course. And we walked in, and he said, Jane, I want you to do all your impersonations that you did for me with Handle with Care. And, of course, nobody looked like I did. I stood out like a sore thumb because I had, straight hair, no curls, and bangs across the front of my forehead, and was very tailored, no frills, no ruffles ever. But after I did my impersonations, all the men applauded and said, well, David, you were right. This is the right little girl for the role. So I didn't have to take a test or anything. I signed a contract for the picture, and then before the picture was over, I signed another contract with 20th Century Fox. They put me under contract during the filming of Bright Eyes.
Well,
So that's how I got the role in Bright Eyes, and it was one of the happiest days of my entire life.
they were very smart to sign you up and lucky to get such a talented actress.
Oh, bless your heart. Well, I think I was destined to be in films. First of all, on the stage. I was on the stage first. Then I did the radio show, which I just loved doing. And people came from all over Georgia and all over to visit the studio where I did the radio show. And they didn't have any chairs for anybody to sit down. They never had people come to the radio station before for any reason. And several hundred people came after the third radio show that I did. They wanted to see me in person. It was so nice, but I was so worried that they didn't have anywhere to sit. So I asked the man at the radio station, I said, could you tell me, please, who is the owner of this radio station? And is he here in the room or here at the station? They said, no, he doesn't come in till Fridays. So I said, well, I can't wait that long. I'd like to talk to him on the phone. And they said, what about? I said, well, it's rather personal. And here I am, so little bitty, talking to them this way. Anyway, they gave me his phone number, and another man there at the studio, who was the manager at the time, he called and said, Mr. Edwards, the little girl Janie Withers, who's on Aunt Sally's Kitty Review, wants to talk to you. And I said, thank you very much. And I talked to him on the phone, and I said, I'm very concerned because so many people are coming to the radio station to meet me in person and see our show, but there's nowhere for them to sit. And I'm very concerned about that because all these people have to stand up around the edges of the studio, and it's an hour show, and I'm very concerned about them. And he laughed, and he said, well, it's nice of you to be concerned. He said, but we don't have any other space. I said, well, may I suggest something? Directly across the street from our studio, there is a lovely building right there on the corner, and it's for lease. And maybe you could lease that studio and put chairs in it for people to see our show. He said, you really do care, don't you? I said, you bet I do. I think it's so nice of all those people to come from wherever they come from just to meet me and say hello. It thrills me to pieces. And I'm sure it must make you happy, too. Well, he laughed and said, well, let me see what I can do. Long story short, he rented the studio. They put about 400 chairs in it, and they were filled every Saturday morning for people that came just to see me. And they had a big I don't know what they call it, but it was like a machine that they put over there so they could hear the radio show. The people sitting down to hear the radio show. And then at the end of the radio show, I would go across the street, take pictures with all the people that came to visit me that wanted pictures with me.
That's sweet.
And I loved it so because that was my introduction to the communication of the world. And I was so thrilled to think that I talk in that little round microphone that I was reaching hundreds of people all over the United States.
Wow. Well, that's wonderful. Can I ask you another question about Bright Eyes?
Okay?
There was another little girl in that movie. I believe her name was Shirley Temple.
Yes.
Well, she was, I think, 6 while you were 8 years old. What was she like? How did she treat you? What was Shirley Temple like when she was 6 and you were 8?
I just adored her. I was a big fan of hers. But the horrible thing was I wasn't allowed to talk to Shirley at all unless I was talking to her as my character, Joyce Knight, in the movie. And it upset me very much. I couldn't imagine why. But her mother had told them to tell me that I couldn't talk to her unless talking to her as Joyce Knight, my character in the movies. And I felt so badly over that.
Wow.
And we couldn't even talk as children to one another except by seeing when I was talking to her in the film. So I prayed about it for so many years, and I thought, someday, God, I hope to be able to talk to Shirley Temple. There's so many things I would love to ask her because we're both little girls in films. We're totally different, like night and day. But I just think so highly of her, and she is, without a doubt, the cutest little girl I've ever seen in my life. And I'm so thrilled and honored to be working with her. But oh my goodness, how much I'd love to talk to her. Well, many years passed, many years. And when I was 16, a very close friend of mine, A.C. Lyles was his name.
I knew
And
A.C.
Pardon me?
I knew A.C. Lyles. He just passed away, yes.
Yes, I was there at the memorial the other day and sat with his wife. Anyway, we've been friends over 70 years.
Wow.
And AC was one of the first boys that was allowed to take me out on a date. Of course, my bodyguards had to go with us, but we were friends for over 70 years.
Wow.
And he was like my brother, my best friend as a boy that I had for many, many years. And when I married, he was the best man for my husband that I married.
Wow. That's wonderful. Well, did he make an arrangement for you to see Shirley again?
Oh, yes. That's what I wanted to tell you. That's why I mentioned AC. He became a producer at Paramount and did cowboy movies. And John Agar was in several of his movies.
Oh.
And when I found out, I said, oh, my goodness gracious, he's married to Shirley, and all my life I've wanted to talk to her. He said, I'm well aware of that. And I told John, and we have worked it out that we're going double date next Saturday night. And he's going to bring Shirley, and we're going to have dinner together, just the four of us. Well, I was so excited. I burst into tears of joy. I was just so excited I could hardly wait till Saturday night. Well, that was the beginning of a wonderful friendship. And every birthday, I have called her for 36 years.
Wow.
And I never miss a birthday of hers. And then when I call, they'll say, who's calling? I'll say, just tell her it's Joyce Knight. That was my name in Bright Eyes. So when she comes to the phone, she's already laughing, and she says, is this who I think it is? I said, you better believe it.
That's
and
wonderful.
Let me tell you something here and now. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Shirley. You know I love you. Have a beautiful day and a very happy birthday, and I hope you're well.
That's wonderful.
Well, we both giggle and laugh and have a nice conversation. And she said, I look forward to this every year. And thank you for your thoughtfulness in calling me. And of course, several other times since then we have seen each other in person. I have some darling pictures of us. I was giving her such a bear hug that, in this picture, if she came across the room to shake hands, I said, "Pooh and nonsense, I want a bear hug." And we became friends many years ago, and thanks to A.C. Lyles.
That's wonderful. That's sweet. Well, that was you kind of answered the second question. My wife wanted to know when was the last time you had seen her, because she saw a picture of the two of you. It must have been within the last 20 years.
It was in 1976 instead of 1978.
She says 1976 or 78.
Oh my, I have not seen a picture of her or anything in a very long time. But I'm sure she's just as sweet as always.
Well,
And I used to talk to her daughter, Linda Souza.
oh yeah. Well, I have another question.